For all things outdoors, listen to the father of two, the Jesus-loving TV show hosting hairy, true-blood American redneck, Ben Cole.
And listen to the outdoor filming, chef cooking, chocolate milk drinking, John Weismuller. And we are
Rooted Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of Rooted Podcast. Today we're going to dive into how to set a tree stand, how to scout public land, tree stand safety, and how to prepare for velvet season hunting as well as early bow season hunting. John, let's dive in.
Hey, let's do it, man. Look, I'm ready now. I've done got me a nice ice cold glass of that chalky milk.
Uh-oh.
Man, whenever you start your day off with a chalky milk, you know it's going to be a good one. So I'm excited for this conversation.
Listen, y'all, whenever John does not have chalky milk, he can get feisty. And I know that from being on the road with him for so long. It's just, you better just go on ahead and get him a glass, a cup, a disposable container, whatever you can find that has chocolate milk in it, and just give it to him.
Oh, yeah. It's always a good bet.
Yep. If there's a frown, that chalky milk will turn it upside down.
All day, every day. That's right.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But man, let's dive in and talk about, first of all, what is in your mind the best way to locate a tree for putting up a tree stand? And you know, you made a really good point before on the previous episode about entry and exit. So let's talk about that and look at that versus how you want to put your stand in what tree.
Yeah, so just for talking's sake, let's just say you have your entry and exit, right? And you're in a good area for deer. Now you're picking out a tree. The first thing I try to think of is if you're in a tree that's not an evergreen, right? That you are in a tree that or in a patch of woods that has a bunch of, leaves that are going to fall off come fall. You need to look at that tree, not how it is, but how it will be. So you need to imagine in your mind, you need to think, how much cover is really here? Because it may look like there's a lot of cover now, but come fall, aka hunting season, when that deer is going to be looking, how much cover do you have? So you need to have a little bit of, forward thinking there as far as cover. So what I like to look for is I like big, sturdy trees. So basically, I don't want it to be narrower than me. I want that thing to be wider than my shoulders, if I can. In a perfect scenario, I find that, and I find a bunch of trees behind me, sticks, anything to break up my outline. That way I can hide from that deer. And then really the other big point that I kind of look for is, what I do is let's say I find my tree, I stand against the tree and look and try to envision, 15, 18, 25, whatever feet up of what am I going to see? What am I looking at? Is it a ridge? Is it multiple ridges? Am I looking at a point? Am I looking at a saddle? What am I trying to look at? Where's the deer coming from? I like to try to position myself to where whenever I see the deer will already be broadside. But obviously that doesn't always happen. But you always can try to set your stand up, perpendicular to the trail. That way, you put the odds in your favor.
So there was one thing that you just said that really grabbed my attention. So you said you don't want a tree that is smaller than you are, which makes perfect sense because if you think about it, when you have a tree that's smaller than you are, you look like a big silhouette up there. If there's nothing behind that tree that can break up your outline, it's just like a big blob. Like for me, example, it's like a big old grizzly bear sitting in a tree looking for berries. I mean, it's just
Exactly.
you got to think about that. Just what you said. You have to think about your cover. One thing you can also think about is if you have cedars on your property, maybe it's a good idea to hang a stand in a in a cedar tree. Although it's going to be very unfortunate to do that in the summertime, man, I'm telling you that evergreen is going to provide you cover all season. And another thing that you could even look at is putting your stand on a tree which is adjacent or right next to, front or behind a cedar, a pine, an evergreen of some sort. So that way it provides you
Right.
with some extra backing and breakup ability. So that way you're not just sitting out in the wide open. And like you said, you have to plan for the leaves being off the trees. That's one of the biggest points I think you just made is that. And knowing which way the deer are coming, what you're looking at. For me, I'm exactly like you. I want those deer to not know that I'm there on their normal travel pattern. I want them to just do their thing like they normally do, not even look up. That's the way I
Yeah.
want it. And to do that, you have to be positioned to where the scent is blowing away from them and your thermals, all that stuff is going away from the deer's natural travel route in front of that stand. So, as hard as it is to do, if that wind is blowing the wrong direction, don't hunt that stand. Don't do it because all it takes,
Right.
and you and I both know this very well, all it takes is for that buck to bust you one time, and he could be gone for the remainder of the season or at
Good
least
luck.
for a while. I mean, he may come back. I'm not saying he's not going to come back, but there is a solid chance that he is going to dip out at least for a month or two and go somewhere else because he's smart and he knows what's up.
Yo, for sure. It doesn't take much to bump those old wise deer. And any little thing that you can do now to help, you know, future you. I mean, always, man, you need to be thinking about future you because no one else is. So be helping future you, man. You just have to. And that is in the form of, thinking about what it's going to look like whenever you're in that stand deer hunting. It's not going to look the same in July as it will in October, November. So
Mm.
you just got to think about that stuff, and the wind is really important. I mean, and it goes in kind of hand in hand with the entry and exit. I mean, wherever you're entering and exiting from, if the wind's wrong for that, it's going to be wrong for the stand. Like it just, you know, what I like to do is kind of just make mental notes, or literally every once in a while bring a pen and paper and literally make a note, and
Mm-hmm.
you know or just put it in your phone or whatever, and just say, hey, stand one, only hunt on a west wind or whatever it is. That way you don't make the mistake, because if you try to remember it all in your head, if you have two or three stands, it's easy to mess it up. I've definitely have done that before.
Oh yeah, me too, man. And talking about entry and exit, we have a spot in particular. You saw it the other day, the new food plot I put in at the ranch. Um, it is very accessible by a dry creek bed, which makes for easy in and out because you don't have to walk through the field. You don't have to walk through anywhere that they are currently traveling. Now, are they going to walk down the creek bed? Yes, they are. But the likelihood of them following the whole entire creek bed is not particularly going to happen from what I've gathered because I have watched this place and watched it and watched it. They cross it, they don't go up and down it. They just will simply go across and that's it. So it's a really good place to ease in, go up the bank, get right in your stand, and never step foot in the field. Never put human scent in that field if you don't have to. Um,
Right.
and that's one thing that I've noticed is the way those deer travel in and out of that particular field. If you drive in there, you can see where their trails are going, and that's what I make note of. So on the piece of paper or on my HuntWise app, I will go in and I will mark those trails and which way they're going. and where they cross
Mm-hmm.
the creek at. So that way I know, okay, I don't want to put my stand right here because I have to walk across a deer trail. I would rather put it in an area where I don't have to cross a deer trail. And sometimes that's not practical because you have to get in there somehow, right? And you're going to cross a deer trail at some point or another. But a good thing to do too is to put out a trail camera and watch those trails, see which ones are the more active. I mean, that's always something you can do
Mm-hmm.
if you really want to know and make an adjustment there. And sometimes there's not a tree big enough to do that. So you just have to resort to a ground blind or whatever. But, man, I always think, it's a good thing to watch where their trails are, know how they're traversing different terrains, and set up accordingly.
Yeah, I mean, and the whole if the tree's not big enough, it's like, you know, what I'm describing is like the perfect scenario for me.
Yeah.
Um, but man, I definitely have killed deer out of trees that are narrower than I am, but I also put a lot of background behind me, made
Mm-hmm.
sure that there was background behind me, a lot of sticks, a lot of brush, stuff that's not going to fall off like a leaf will, right? So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
it's not that it's not doable. It's just way easier if you just have a tree behind you versus having to find all this brush and making sure you put it in the right spot and all this and that. It's like, you know, it's very doable, but it's just much easier if there's a bigger tree. Just use the tree. Don't overthink it. It's kind of my thought process.
Yeah, what I was getting at with the trees that aren't big enough, I'm talking about like saplings and stuff like that that truly cannot hold the weight of a tree stand. You know, uh,
Yeah.
that would not be safe to get in. That's what I'm getting at is, because we got some spots like that in the back 40 that there's some trees that I wouldn't even attempt to put a tree stand in. And it's just kind of is what it
Oh
is.
yeah.
You got a ground blind and that's it. I mean that's all you got. So, I think that
Yep.
it's all situational, you know, wherever you are at the time. But, I think that's some really good points that you hit on, though, is talking about the tree size and stuff like that. And it just all really plays into safety, right? It all ties into being safe in the tree because at the end of the day, we want to go home to our loved ones, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's you know, obviously whenever you're setting up a stand, like, and I say obviously, but there's a lot of people that don't do it. But it's like you need to bring a buddy with you. Like I don't care what you're setting up. I don't care if it's a lock on or a ladder stand or like a saddle setup or whatever. I mean, you just need to have a buddy. You need to give somebody, your location. I know on the Hunt Wise app, you can set a pin, all those things, and you need to send that to people. Maybe not your buddy who's going to steal your best hunting spot, but maybe your wife or your grandmother or your mom or somebody, and just let them know that way. Lord forbid something happens, someone knows where you are. But man, you just to me, I would never put up a stand alone, even if I know I could do it myself. It's not the point. I'm not trying to be macho man. You just need to be safe, and that's just one aspect of it. That's just setting it up. Let's say you already have it set up, and you're going to go hunt it this year. Okay, well the first thing you need to do before hunt season even gets here is check the straps, shake it a bit, make sure it's still good up in there. Because I know a lot of us just go in there like, oh man, it's fine, and then you walk up there and they're in straps frayed, or it's just being cracked, and it's not really designed to hold your life for years and years and years. So I would always check those straps, man. You just never know.
But what I'll say about that is, you can be as macho as you want to. And when you fall out of a tree and you're paralyzed, well, guess what? You're not so macho anymore. There's not much you can do about that. Or, I mean, let's be real honest here. I'm going to be brutally honest, man. You can die. I mean, this is not
Oh yeah.
something to be taken lightly. You have to prepare and have, like you said, a plan, and you have to be safe doing this kind of stuff because, man, it's a split second and you're not walking anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to be
Wear a
heavy.
harness.
Yes, wear a harness. I mean, I'm not trying to be heavy, but I'm trying to say, hey, you know,
Oh, man.
your family wants you to come home. And, you want to go home to your family, no matter how tough you are. You love them babies. There ain't a man on this earth that can sit there and look at me and say, man, I don't want to go home to my kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I want to be hoorah, macho man. All right, cool deal, man. Well, I like going home to my kids and my wife and yada yada, but everybody's story is different. But the baseline is you have to be safe getting in and out of these stands. So put a lifeline on there, clip in. That way, guess what?
Yeah,
If
exactly.
if a step breaks, you know what? You're not going to fall and break your neck. You're going to dangle there.
Yes, you will dangle like a pinata, and it'll be
Yeah,
all right.
yeah, you'll be fine. Your inner thighs might go numb, and that's okay. You're going to live. You know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
your armpits may be a little sore from the fall, but you know what? You're going to be living, breathing, walking, not having
Mhm.
a lot of issues. So I second that with you, man. You have to be safe when you're doing this stuff. Otherwise, think about your buddy. That's we. You want him to have to drag you out of a holler? I mean, do you want to put that burden on him to have to call your wife and kids and family and tell them, well, he died or whatever? I mean, I don't want that burden on anybody. I don't,
No,
I
heck
don't.
no, dude.
Well, man, what's
It's
crazy
not
is,
worth it, man. It's just not.
no, it's not. And it's funny. The other day, me and you had this exact conversation. I called you up and said, hey, man, whenever you have some free time, I would love for you to be there when I'm hanging these stands because I do not want to do it by myself because we don't have cell service there. We have nothing.
Yeah.
So, and I feel like there's a lot of places in the U.S. that are like that, the rural areas where you're trying to get up in a tree stand and deer hunt or what have you. It's just kind of like that. So it's always good to have a buddy, to have a plan, and to be hooked to that tree.
Absolutely. And whether it's a lifeline or you got like a lineman's belt, I know a lot of the saddle hunters and the lock on guys, like I can't tell you, dude, how many people I've seen put on that first set of steps and they climb up and put on the second and just keep going. And you're like, dude,
Mm-mm.
like, man, you need to be strapped in there some freaking how. I mean,
Yeah.
something. Me, I hunt a lot out of ladder stands. Um, which just kind of brings me to my next point of I kind of get asked sometimes, does it matter, what type of stand, what am I trying to say? Does it matter what I'm looking for versus according to what kind of stand I'm using? And really, the answer to me is no. Uh, doesn't really matter the type of stand. The baseline foundation of what I look for is the same. If I'm using a lock on, you can kind of get away with putting it in a couple different places. Like I may look for a spot that's already kind of open in the tree to hang my stand. That way, I don't have to cut up a whole new hole per se. But man, I've shot a lot of deer out of a ladder stand, and I've never really had it. A lot of people say that it bothers deer. I don't know about you, Ben, but I haven't had a ladder stand booger up a hunt for me.
No, me neither. It's always been me that's boogered up the hunt. I might, cut the cheese or whatever. I'm talking
Exactly.
too loud or something
Eating
that.
a, zebra cake.
Hey, now don't be knocking my zebra cakes. Now I'm gonna have a little Debbie in the blind or tree stand or whatever. I got little Debbie's in my
That's right.
backpack. Now, if I'm in camp with any of y'all later, don't be sniffing around my backpack. Now I got a radar on that thing. It pings me right off.
Oh
Hey, you got
yeah.
a little Debbie thief in there. No, I'm just I'm just kidding. I'll share with you. I'll get enough for everybody. But man, I do love zebra cakes. Golly bum, they're good in a tree stand, especially when you got that little morning hunger and you're like, man, I sure could use a snack. A little Debbie, little
Dude,
zebra cake. It just does it
and it's
for
the
you.
Christmas tree one
Oh
during that time of the
man,
year.
don't even start. So
Dude.
a few years back, I had a pack of Christmas tree Little Debbie's that I left in my boat,
Mm-hmm.
and whoever shot the best that day got a Little Debbie. I'd pass them out like, all right, you killed that one. Here's a Little Debbie. Let me have a Little Debbie. Nope, you missed.
Exactly. Be better.
Yeah, shoot better, and I will give you a Little Debbie cake. But hey, man, when we're in my boat, I've got little snacks tucked everywhere. I've got little Viennas and crackers and all kind of stuff packed in that bad boy. I ain't gonna be hungry now because you know me, I'll sit out there all day to kill a duck. I'll
Oh
do it.
yeah.
I will do it in a heartbeat.
Look. If you are ever in some sort of hunting environment with Ben and I, whether it's camp or on the boat or in the blind, if you go hungry, that's your own fault.
That's exactly
That's all I
right.
gotta say.
Dude, I got a funny story about a Little Debbie. So years ago, this is many moons ago before I was so densely packed, fluffy, if you will. Um, I was
Yeah.
just out of high school, or maybe I was still in high school. It was right there, either just out or my senior year or something like that. One of my buddies invited me down to bow hunt, and I was like, all right, sweet. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 2:30, something like that. And I thought, shoot, man, I got plenty of time to eat this Little Debbie real quick. I got that thing open and ate the first one, and I was diving into that second one, and I just felt like something was looking at me. So I peered over that wrapper, and there stands a doe. She wasn't looking at me; she was looking on through the woods. But I just grabbed that Little Debbie, and I crumbled it up and put it in my pocket, just like that. And I got my bow, drew back, shot her. Yeah, my explosions, man. I get fired up about it. Hang my bow back up, get my Little Debbie out of my pocket, and I eat the crumbles. And then it started to rain. I couldn't find blood, man. Dude, we walked for, I don't know, a couple miles, and she was laying 45 yards from where I shot her right by the road. Like, we literally walked past her 3 times because the rain set in and washed all that blood trail away. And I mean, I was like, on the third time we were on our way back to the truck, I was like, oh, there she is right there. It's like, good night, man. That Little Debbie had me tore up.
Oh yeah. Hey, but it gave you enough energy to walk by her 3 times, so that's good.
Oh yeah, man. Look, now I'll give you a little boost of sugar too. If you need a little pick me up, a Little Debbie's a good way to do it.
Oh, absolutely. Oh my goodness. But anyway, uh,
Enough about Little Debbie's.
Yeah. Look for a good tree. That way you could get away with eating a Little Debbie and still whack a deer. That's all I'm trying to say here.
Oh yeah, you got to find the tree that you can prop up against. Eat your Little Debbie snack. Don't do like me though. Don't crumble it up and put it in your pocket. Just set it in your backpack. Probably would have been the best option. I was just trying to, be discreet, not move a whole lot. And turns out, I only got about 75% of that Little Debbie because it was in such crumbles. I was very disheartened about it. It just broke my feelings because I wanted that Little Debbie because I was hungry. But, man,
I do have
I agree.
one more point about a tree stand. Here.
Yes, sir. Let's dive into it.
If you are putting a lock on, whether it's a set, like Ben and I, we always are in a set of some sort, whether it's a ladder stand and then a lock on beside it, or it's 2 lock ons or 2 saddles or whatever. And this sounds so simple, but it's very important. Whenever you're setting up your sticks, make sure that you set the sticks above your stand. Don't step up into your stand. I like to step into my stand. Like, I like to set it just a little. I'm not talking 2 feet below. I'm just talking like, if the last step is here, I want the platform to be, here. I want to step down a little bit onto my stand. It's just a little safer, in my opinion. And then also a little thing that I like to do is put like the little screw in like backpack holders or whatever, and use those as handles. If on the other side of the tree, just a little tip for you there.
Yeah, so you can use those as handles, but you can also take just an extra stick and put it up there, and that gives you two more sets of handholds to climb on up in there, and then swing your foot over instead of having to, just bear hug the tree and slide over. You can either do the screw in steps or just add a stick, a short one, right up there on the tree, and then you are ready to rock and roll. But one thing you need to look at on setting up those lock-ons, one thing I would do, this is just the way I do it. When I'm setting up those sticks, I do not use the factory straps. I use ratchet straps. And here's why.
Correct.
Because I'm a 300-pound man. I'm thick, okay? And when I step on that step and I'm 20 foot up and there's 300 pounds of human leaning on this, holding on to it, and that thing gives, well, guess what? When I start going, the whole thing's coming with me. So, because I ain't going to let go. I'm holding on now. I'm like one of them snapping turtles that just locks on and just holding on for dear life. And, that's not good. And I'm not saying those straps are bad. I'm just saying for me, I would rather have the security of a ratchet strap that actually cinches that to the tree and there's no room for movement. I don't like movement when I'm climbing up a tree. I don't like it at all.
No.
Not even a little bit.
Me neither, man.
Mm-mm.
No.
I'm good. And I use
my thing to my ladder stand.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, that's it, man. And I even use my saddle, so I saddle hunt. But I also know that there's a time and a place for a ladder stand, a lock-on stand, all that stuff. And when I'm setting up those stands, dude, I use my saddle to set up those stands because I know that I'm not going anywhere. I'll either set my tether up or use my lineman belt, and I know for a fact that I am not going anywhere. I have literally more than once put my line or my tether on there and hooked it right to my saddle. Dude, I'll just sit there and just woo, look, mom, no hands kind of thing, And so I feel perfectly safe in those things. And, and I have to say, when you're putting up a tree stand, you can use the lineman belt on your safety harness too.
Mm-hmm.
Because safety harnesses have that ability. You don't have to have a fancy saddle to do that. That just goes into being safe again. And I know we've already touched on that, but that's just what I do to be safe. And I like it because it has pockets where I can put my ratchet straps. Then on my way up, I don't have to let somebody throw it up or whatever. I can just reach in my pocket, cinch that baby down, and move to the next one.
Yeah, exactly. No, dude, I'm telling you, man, ratchet straps are definitely the way to go. I mean, whenever I set up a ladder stand, so most ladder stands come with these two big long straps, and then you cross them behind the tree, come back and cinch it down to the ladder, tie it in a knot, whatever. So I have that, and I have a one or two ratchet straps up top, and then I put one on the ladder itself. That way, I mean, you're just in there. And a lot of people are like, man, that's just overkill. It's like, dude, I'm just safe, man. I'm just safe. And then I've got that lifeline, and I'm hooked in the whole time. And you just can't go too safe, man. You really just can't. I mean,
no, you can't.
Any precaution is necessary in my eyes. So anyway, that's kind of all I've really got to say about tree stands. I mean,
yeah, no, I think we covered it.
I mean, it's pretty much the bottom line is you got to do the work first, right? Trail cameras, food plots, whatever. Make sure that there's deer there, obviously. Find the trails. Don't set up right on the trail, get back a little bit, 20, 30 yards, whatever. I like to get perpendicular to it, but you do you. Find you a big old tree and cinch her down and sit there and rock on. And guess what? It's a tree stand. If you don't like where it is, because the deer are doing something different, you can move it. That's like the whole point of it. So something to keep in the back of your mind.
I agree with that 110%, sir. No, I don't need to say anything else about it. You covered it perfectly.
So I tell you what, then let's kind of dive into scouting in public land. This is, you know, one of the things I think that is kind of overlooked as far as tips and tricks and things that people say to do or not to do. Uh, and we've talked a lot about the Sinking Creek Ranch and the place I have to hunt, and I don't want people to get it messed up now. Ben and I are some public land hunters, man. But long before I had this, that's all I had was public land, and I've scouted it. I've been there. I've ran into a bunch of hunters. I bumped a bunch of deer and turkey and everything else. Been there, done that. So I just want to kind of talk over some points and make sure that everybody kind of knows what we like to do for whenever we go to a piece of public, because we've been there, done that.
Well, I know this isn't on the topic of deer, but I have duck hunted public land for over 25 years before I started hunting private. So I have cut my teeth on big rivers and public land. So it used to be real good, but it ain't so much anymore. So, you know.
Yeah, man. That is kind of one of the problems with public land is, but with all that said, there's still good spots and good spots to be found. And where I like to start is I open up the HuntWise app and I look at the map. Let's just assume, Ben, for this scenario, that we've never been to this spot at all. It's a brand new spot we're going to. We're checking it out. What's the first thing you do? I like to get that map out, look, and I like to try and find pinch points, saddles, ridges, maybe where I think a bedding area is. I look for water. So, but the first thing I like to look for right off the gate is pinch points and saddles. For me, if I'm looking in the woods.
The first thing that I like to do is understand the property lines and know, okay, this is kind of how it lays out. And that way, even before that, let's take a step back. Before that, you want to download the offline maps before you go out there and lose cell service. And then it's like, well, what do we do now? You want to be able to have those maps downloaded on your HuntWise app. So that way, you know what you're doing, even if you don't have cell service, and more importantly, where you're at, so you don't end up on the neighbor's property and he gets mad and calls the cops or game warden, whatever. You want to be by the book all the time. And after that, what I start doing is I look for the deepest place in that public land, because let's be honest, I don't even really want to walk that far, but I will if I have to. And so, and what I mean by that is I'll get that map and I'll look, all right, this is such and such miles away from this point, this point, this point. And then I hone in on one spot. I'm like, okay, you have a saddle here. You have a pinch point here. You have a finger ridge right here. All these lead up to this one spot. You have a food source here. You have a food source here. It all ties together. Boom. And then I put boots on the ground and I go walk and I look. And one thing to note too is, I know it's kind of cliched, I guess, but I like to spray down before I just go traipsing through the woods, And obviously, yeah, you're going to sweat and all that stuff. But dude, I really like to spray myself down and try to contain some scent if possible. That's just kind of what I like to do when I'm out there browbeating in the old public land anyway.
Oh, for sure. I mean, any little advantage you can get, right? So I always like to start with that map, find a spot, go look at it, and if I don't like it or it's not what I thought it was, then I make an adjustment and go forward. But once you get in the woods, at least the aerial map, all it's doing for me is getting me in the general area. It's going, okay, out of this vast land, let's start at this radius versus I drive there and I don't know anything and I just start walking aimlessly. To me,
Mm-hmm.
that's just a waste of time. So the the map on HuntWise is just, for me, it gets me in like, okay, I'm gonna check out this area, and then I go and then I look, right, and I'm looking, what am I looking for? I'm looking for trails. I'm looking for prints. I'm looking for scrapes. I'm looking for rubs. Obviously, older rubs, right? I'm
Droppings.
looking for worn down paths. Yeah, exactly. Any deer sign I can find, and then I'm going, okay, here we go, bang, 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 and then if it's legal in your state, set up a camera on public land. Um,
Don't tell
sometimes I
anybody
do
where it
that.
is.
Sometimes I don't do that though. Honestly, on public, so just because people are people are crappy, you know, people steal stuff. But there is a cool little gadget out there that you actually, I forget what it's called, but I do own it. Oh, I forget what it's called. Anyway, this thing. So like this thing screws on the bottom of your camera. This other attachment screws into the tree, and then the two things click together, and now your camera's up in the tree, and you can move it. Anyway, it makes it to where people really don't see it. But any which way, uh, if you feel froggy, put a camera up. But you know, even without a camera, I'm just looking for any kind of sign, and then away from the majority of people as much as you can.
No, I agree with that 100%, man. That's what I like to do too, man. And early season especially, and late season, but when it's really hot, if you can also find a water source, that also provides a solid place to start. At least looking, if there's a little pond or a creek or whatever, a little river that runs through there, you can walk down that and pretty well see where they're coming in and out. I mean, it's pretty obvious where their paths take them on that kind of stuff. So,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I would do too. Is just take the time and look and make a list. Okay, I want to hit the saddles, the finger ridges, pinch points, food source, and water,
Exactly.
and then divide and conquer. Go hit all of them. Find it, love it, hunt it. It's just what I would do.
Yeah, exactly. And then guess what? It's all gonna change come hunting season anyway. Because
Show
there's
is.
a ton of people who just walk right in there, and then,
Mm-hmm.
but then this is the whole point of going and finding 3 or 4 different spots
Yep.
and knowing like, okay, I need to hunt here, or someone's in this spot. Let me go to this other spot. So
Yeah. Always have a backup.
absolutely,
Always have that backup plan, my friend.
it never hurt to, especially on that old public land. I tell you what else, dude, on public land. Uh, a lot of people, a lot of people rush to be the first one there,
Mm-hmm.
and I get it. It's like I got to get my spot. Okay, cool. If you sit all day, maybe it's worth it. But for me, I've had a lot more success on public going in at like 10 o'clock,
Mm-hmm.
9, 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Most of that first wave of hunters are out of there. Those deer are kind of like, oh man, the people are gone. And then little do they know that you're slipping right in there.
That's
I
right.
mean, obviously, I've killed deer all times of the day, but it's like on public land, it just seems to be a little better for me when I sneak in after that first round of hunters is gone.
No, yeah,
Sweet,
no,
sweet.
dude, I agree 110% with that. I do the same thing every time. Did the exact same thing.
Especially for turkeys, man. I know we're
Oh
talking about deer hunting and it's beautiful right now,
yeah.
but the turkeys, man. them turkey birds have been worked and worked and worked all morning, and
Mm-hmm.
they're henned up, and they don't feel like playing, and then you slip in every old 10, 11 o'clock and get one
Mm-hmm.
fired back up.
Dude, you know what I used to do on the ducks? This is not deer, guys, so don't lose your mind about it. But on the ducks, what I'd do is I'd have secondary spots that I'd already scouted the day before, but I wouldn't scout until 9, 10, 11, and then figure out, all right, they're hitting this island on this side in this wind at this time because they know they're not getting hunted. So guess what? Old BC goes slipping in there, and when everybody else hit the boat ramp to go get a biscuit, see, I already had my biscuit and I had a lunch packed. So I just slip on in, throw a handful of decoys out, and boy, we would shoot, boom, boom, pow, loud, dead ducks everywhere. Just got to know how to beat the system, man. Just got to figure it
Well,
out.
it's like the same foundation goes for deer hunting too. I feel
Yeah,
it's like
of course.
scout, have a
Mm-hmm.
second spot, a third spot, and just
Even a
hunt.
fourth spot,
That's the
man.
biggest thing. Absolutely. But it's like to me the biggest thing is you just got to be out there, stay out there. A lot of people go in like I didn't see nothing and leave 2 hours in. Nope,
Yeah,
nope,
no,
nope,
I'm
nope. You got to
no.
hunt.
Yep, gotta hunt, man. Gotta be there because listen, the longer your rear end sits in that stand, the more likely you are to actually see a deer. Because the more times you go in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out, well, you're disturbing everything that's going on. You got to let it settle down and just sit there. And, it's okay. It's okay to just be still
Exactly.
sometimes. It's one of my
Enjoy
favorite
it.
verses in the Bible is Psalms 46:10, where it says, "Be still and let God be God." And dude, that is my favorite verse because I need it all the time because there's a lot of times I don't want to be still. I want to be like, man, what if I sit up on this ridge, or like 200 yards down or whatever. I get so antsy and I have blown more turkey hunts by not being patient, more deer hunts and duck hunts by not being patient. Just getting up, moving, and the
Yep.
second I get all the decoys up and I look back, here they come every time,
Oh yeah.
like clockwork.
And look, this is just a general rule of thumb. My dad has always said this, and he's the one that taught me this. He's like, as soon as you're like, all right, my hunt's over, I'm going home, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like, man, I'm done. He said he always give it 15 minutes. Just give it another 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Because typically, as soon as your bow hits the ground, right, from from the string, here it comes, and you're like, oh my gosh,
Dude, so when I
give
was
it 15
yeah.
minutes.
So when I was a kid, I had never killed a deer with my bow yet, and I remember this day like it was yesterday. Me and Dad were set up in Mississippi in this old swamp bottom. Dude, I was getting destroyed by mosquitoes. This was before the thermocell existed. And I was like, Dad, I can't take this anymore. He's like, all right, man, we'll let you bow down. No sooner than my bow hit the ground, here comes 2 bucks. And I'm just stuck with the rope in my hand, like, well, what do we do now? So, me being a kid, I'm sitting there trying to ease it back up, real slow. And of course, they go, I was like, well, we done now, boys. Might as well call the dogs and go eat breakfast. It's done. This hunt's over. And, it took me a while to realize what I'd done, but I just got too antsy and I got too fidgety. Instead of just sitting there for another 10, 15, 20 minutes, I could have killed my first buck with a bow. But instead, and dude, they were perfect.
Mm-hmm.
15 yards, broadside, perfect setup. They came right down this ridge into the bottom and we're going to the creek and the food plot that we had made. I mean, dude, it was the most beautiful layout that could have happened. And then I go and just can't handle this anymore, because I'm a kid and I was probably hungry or whatever. And, it just happened, man. And I'll never forget that day. Never, not one time in my life will I forget that experience. But, you live and you learn, man. You just got to, it's just like riding a horse. You just got to get back in that saddle and keep going.
Yeah, dude. And I will say really quick, that's one thing I kind of kind of forgot to mention on the whole tree stand thing. Make sure you have ropes to bring up your bag and your bow and your other stuff. Like,
Yes.
don't climb up with all the crap. Like,
Mm-mm.
have a rope. That way, it's nice and easy. Yeah. Anyway,
No, man, that's it. And
simple as that.
yeah, and I think we have run out of time for today. So what we need to do is make a whole episode on early season prep for velvet and early bow season. 2 different times of the year, kind of close, but those deer are starting to come off that summer pattern when they get hard horn. We'll dive into all that next week.
Yeah, man, that sounds like a plan to me. I think we kind of covered this up pretty good and well. So, yeah, man. The only thing I really have to say is just please remember to be safe out there whenever you're putting up your tree stands. I know it's an exciting time of year. We're always thinking about that big deer on camera,
Mm-hmm.
all that, trying to, move the right chess piece wherever it needs to be. That way we can checkmate when the time is right. But you got to be safe while you're doing it. And also, please remember we have a YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all those fun things. Please like, share, subscribe. Go to rootedtelevision.com. You can check out all of our episodes there. You can check out our awesome shop with all of our amazing gear. Also, in the link in the description of this episode, there is a link that you can support this podcast and give donations and things. As soon as you hit the link, it'll give you all the instructions that you need. So just check us out. Thanks for listening wherever or however you are listening. So I really appreciate the support. And you guys stay tuned. We got a lot of things coming up. You just never know with old BC now. Whatever he comes up with over there.
Hey, that's right, man. And with that, John, y'all stay safe out there. And the Rednecks out.
See y'all.
For all things Rooted Podcast and Rooted Television, and I mean hats, shirts, hoodies, and other merch, check out our friends at CH Lone Star Pro and the link that is in our description.